لله رب العالمين نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونتوب إليه ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل وسلم وزد وبارك وأنعم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك. Brothers and sisters, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have us all next year, inshallah, together on Arafat. Allahumma ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. There is no doubt these blessed days that we have, alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, is a huge ni'mah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, huge blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We all know the hadith Ibn Abbas narrated radiallahu anhuma. قال صلى الله عليه وسلم: ما من أيام العمل الصالح فيه أحب إلى الله من العشر الأوائل من ذي الحجة. قالوا: ولا الجهاد يا رسول الله؟ قال صلى الله عليه وسلم: ولا الجهاد إلا رجل خرج بنفسه وماله في سبيل الله ولم يرجع من ذلك بشيء. أو كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم. There is no blessed days that the good deeds are more beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except in these 10 days of the Hijjah. Even jihad, except someone sacrifice with his wealth and himself. So brothers and sisters, let's just not only prepare ourselves for these 10 days that have been already started, but also to remember and remind ourselves the huge blessing that we have, the honor, the dignity, that alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, we are the one to celebrate this honored family of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam and his son Sayyidina Ismail alayhi salam and his wife Sayyidina Hajar alayhi salam. We are the one who got that honorship, that dignity to celebrate the legacy of this blessed family. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us the best followers of Sayyidina Ibrahim and Millat Sayyidina Ibrahim all the way to Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. With no further delay, I will inshallah start the lecture with Brother Mazin Mukhtar. As we all know, Brother Mazin Mukhtar, may Allah bless him and his family. He inshallah will talk to us about the Hajj as Tarbiyah school. As we all know, in Mass, it's all about Tarbiyah. And there's nothing better than a Hajj as a very comprehensive, very complete way of Tarbiyah. Either in the Murabbi, the mentor, the Murabba, mentee, the curriculum, the place of Tarbiyah, the method of Tarbiyah. There is no other way you can find a complete, comprehensive school of Tarbiyah more than Hajj. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from us all, inshallah, and Brother Mazin to put inshallah.
بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبع هداه بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. Today and for the next 25-30 minutes, inshallah, I would like to take you on a journey. This year, none of us are going to Hajj. So let's go to Hajj today. For a few minutes, let's be with the Hujjaj and let's see what experience the Hujjaj experienced. And let's share in some of the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put. So you begin sometime with Hajj, remembering that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلِلَّهِ عَلَى النَّاسِ حِجُّ الْبَيْتِ اسْتَطَاعَ إِلَيْهِ سَبِيلًا. It is due to Allah, mankind, to perform pilgrimage to the house, the Kaaba, for whoever is able to make way to do so. So you start getting interested in going to Hajj. And then you remember that Umrah to Umrah forgives what's between them, and as the Messenger of Allah said, and an accepted Hajj has no reward but Jannah. So now you start getting really interested in Hajj. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you read, He tells us that Hajj is not simply a trip, it's a whole experience. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then tells us Al-Hajj Ashhurun Ma'lumat, they are known months. فمن فرض فيه الحج whatever result from Hajj during this time, فلا رفث ولا فسوق ولا جدال في الحج. And then you start reflecting about this. لا رفث, no intimacy in Hajj, no intimate relations, and none of the things that lead to intimate relations in Hajj. So there's an element of controlling yourself there. ولا فسوق, there is no corruption in Hajj, there is no indecency in Hajj. ولا جدال, and no argumentativeness in Hajj. Right, so now we see that there is an element of career there. How can I tame myself? How can I be a better version? And that should remind you of the lessons of Ramadan. It's a lot like Ramadan. And just like Ramadan is a month-long immersive career experience, Hajj is another immersive career experience. And just like in Ramadan, you're trying to improve your taqwa, and you're trying to tame your nafs, in Hajj you're doing the same. And it's really interesting, the middle one is not surprising at all, right? That no fusuq. But then there is no intimacy. Even if you and your wife go, you're separated during the Hajj. And there's no argumentativeness. And for a lot of people, that's the hardest one. There is no argument. Argumentativeness is different from arguing. Argument is making an argument is fine. But argument is having an argument back and forth, that's not fine. That's the time where you stand silent. You don't engage in argumentativeness. So now you realize, right, by going to Hajj, I'm going to not only experience something special, but I'm going to be someone special during the time of Hajj. You now really get interested in going to Hajj. You're warming up. But then Hajj is costly. So you start saving in order to go to Hajj. And you remind yourself that every dollar that you save that you don't spend for Hajj is fi sabilillah. And every dollar you spend for the Hajj instead of other things, that sacrifice is lillah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that payment is to Allah for it in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you finally save up. And you put together the money, and you finally have however much it is for your Hajj package. And you go to your favorite travel agency, you get your Hajj package, and you're really excited. And then you start reading about Hajj. You say, whoa, Hajj is all about Ibrahim alayhi salam. Hajj is full of meaning. This is not an arbitrary act of worship, right? Salah is straightforward, Shahada is straightforward. Hajj involves reenacting things. But what's the meaning of these things? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not giving us arbitrary things. Then you start thinking of Ibrahim alayhi salam, making the dua along with his son. Oh my Lord, I am put in residence from among my descendants in a valley that has no vegetation, next to your sacred house. When Ibrahim went there was no house. Right? According to the strongest record, it was built by Adam the first time. With the ravages of time, it was wiped out. The only thing that remained was foundation underground. And according to the lesser opinion, is that it was built first by Ibrahim alayhi salam. But there was no house there. The house was meant to be there. And yet, he's putting his family there when there's no house. Why? رَبَّنَا لِيُقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ, so that they establish salah. So then you think to yourself, wow, salah is really central and important. I mean, even Hajj, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is bringing salah. رَبَّنَا لِيُقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ, so they establish salah. Oh my, our Lord, make the hearts of people inclined toward it. And then you read this and say, oh Allah, subhanAllah, I feel so attracted to make Hajj, right? All of us know somebody who spent years sitting up to Hajj, right? Absolutely. The hearts of people inclined toward Hajj. There is something magical there. It's not magic, it's the dua of Ibrahim alayhi salam. That's as close to magic as you can get. My heart inclines. وَارْزُقْهُمْ مِنَ الثَّمَرَاتِ. And then you start thinking, I mean, how do these people in the middle of the desert actually get, people in Mecca, they were not a farming community. People in Medina were a farming community. People in Mecca were not a farming community. And yet, the people of Mecca had everything. Because they were New York, they were the trading center. So they had everything from everywhere. They had fruits from all sorts of places, dried and otherwise. SubhanAllah. Allah made a way. Just as Allah made a way for Hajar and Ismail to survive there, Allah made a way for Mecca to have fruit all year long. So that they may be grateful. So Allah making them all the grateful people. Then finally, you get ready for the time. And in your journey, you put your ihram clothes. And you remind yourself, you know what ihram is? Ihram is a special condition where things that are normally halal temporarily become haram until there is halal from that ihram. You know it very well in salah, right? You say Allahu Akbar and something talking is haram in the middle of salah. It's a special condition. That's ihram. So now you're putting the clothes of ihram. And then you remind yourself, SubhanAllah, we're all dressed the same. All the artificial differences that Allah is trying to eliminate are eliminated now. Wallahi, I know the women is different for consideration for women's circumstances, but at least among the men, you can't tell the king from the servants. You can't tell rich from poor. We're all the same, and we're dressed in a way that reminds us of death. So now you say, okay, so Hajj is Ibrahim, and Hajj is a reminder of death as well. For a period of time, I'm going through difficulty for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Finally, you make it there. And then you arrive in Mecca. It's a very, very nice trip. And you're in Jeddah airport, you make it out, you finally make it into Mecca, and you get to the Masjid al-Haram, and beautiful outside. And it's very, very nice. Then you walk inside a Masjid al-Haram. And for the first time in your life, you see the Kaaba. And at that moment, your head swoons. Wow. Forget about the message, just a beautiful message. Kaaba. It is the spiritual center of the world. The Kaaba, where everybody on earth prays in that direction. The unifier of the Muslimin. Symbolically, by praying all of us to the Kaaba, it's as if we are one congregation. As if all Muslims are praying together. Wow! The Kaaba that was built by Ibrahim and Ismail. You're there. And you're struck. You are witnessing something of history, the likes of which exists nowhere else. And you remember how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the house a destination for people and a place of sanctuary. And told us to take from the Maqam of Ibrahim, the place where Ibrahim was standing in the building, a place of prayer. And how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the covenant with Ibrahim and Ismail, or charged them with purifying that house so that people can circumambulate. Or as the Messenger described, it's a salah, circumambulating the Kaaba is a salah, except talking is allowed. And the people are remaining there for worship. And people are in prostration and in sujood. And you think, but we are Muslimin. We don't have idols. We don't care about rocks. Absolutely don't. So you think to yourself, well, the rocks don't matter. They're not the same rocks anyway. Right? They change over time. The shape doesn't matter. It changed over time. It was, remember, rectangular, then long, and at one point it was long, and then half circle on one side. It changed over time. It's not about that. It's about one thing. What makes Kaaba special is one thing. That Allah designated it so. That's it. Just as Allah designated Jumu'ah, just as Allah designated Ramadan. That's it. There's nothing else. There may be reasons why Allah designated it, but what makes it special is that Allah designated it. So our worship is pure. It's not about the rocks. Even Hajar al-Aswad. Over time it was broken. From the original Hajar al-Aswad? It was just small pebbles on our left. Broken with time, kidnapped by the Pharaoh, years. No, it's not about that. It's about Allah. And it's about a community that is unified by whatever it is that Allah has named as our unifier. And you start thinking, who are all these people? Yes, I knew there were Muslims from Comoros Islands. I knew there were Muslims from Yugoslavia or now, Macedonia. I knew about that. I knew there were Chinese Muslims. But I'm seeing them now. They're there. They're there. Wow. And the feeling, if you haven't been there, feeling part of such a diverse community is entirely different from knowing that it exists. Then you start feeling, wow, I am part of something big. I am part of something truly universal. This is not a marginal faith. It is a marginalized group of people in some places. Just like at the time of Ibrahim, he was the minority. And they were marginalized, but they're not a margin. He was the Ummah. He was al-Ummah, and he was the Ummah in his time. And at the time of the messenger, they were minority, marginalized, but they were not the margin. They were the center. Everybody else was the margin. You see it. You experience it. Wow, that is powerful Tarbiyah. And then suddenly, you feel inside, Islam is big. Islam is mighty. And when we feel somehow embarrassed to pray in public or we're a minority or so, no, we got it wrong. Now I see. And you realize that the faith is one, the Lord is one, the book is one, our pain is one, our joys are one, our community is one, the firm handhold is one. We just make silly artificial differences among us. But we are all one. Even during that time, our clothes are one. And then you remember, this deen is meant to be universal. This deen is not the deen that was initiated by Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's the only deen that ever existed. In fact, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam explicitly is the reviver of the deen of Ibrahim alaihi salam. Islam is what Ibrahim called his followers, right? Muslimin. Allah says in the Quran, and all the prophets after and before were Muslimin, period. He's talking about what? Christians and Jews. And I say what I'm saying right now with full respect to those who have a different perspective. Right? I mean no disrespect right now to a Christian or to a Jew or a person. I just want to clarify. But what makes the Christian a Christian is that they do not follow Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And what makes the Jew a Jew is that they do not follow Isa alayhi salam. But the deen is one. You know, when people say, oh, Christians are offended that there was a movie made about you, we should be, he's our prophet. Right? He's like every way, he's our prophet. Okay, if tomorrow some people chose, to worship the hand of Muhammad sallallahu, it doesn't make them more Muslims. They're all us. The deen is one. And Ibrahim is our messenger. We mention him by name in Salah, every single Salah. We are following his religion. Allah says in the Quran, and who is it who seeks a path away from the faith of Ibrahim except one who takes himself for a fool? Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a follower of Ibrahim alayhi salam, and so are we. I want to clarify this because the concept that Islam is 1400 years old is fundamentally wrong. You could say that Christianity is so many 100 years old. You could say that. But you cannot say this about it. You can say Islam is as old as Ibrahim alayhi salam, as in the modern form, it's from Ibrahim alayhi salam. You can say it's as old as Noah or as old as Adam. But you can't make it in any form or shape newer than that. And then you go to the well of Zamzam. And soon after you do Salah between Safa and Marwa, and you are struck. Can you imagine that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered Ibrahim to leave his wife and baby son? It's the only thing he ever asked for in the world. The only thing of dunya we know of that Ibrahim ever asked for is to have a child who can carry his legacy after him. So Allah chooses to test him in that. Leave him in the desert. And leaving somebody in the desert is a very reliable way of killing him. You think he had trust in Allah. And the trust was well placed. And he said, you know what? All those times I was arguing about the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I was a fool. Ibrahim alayhi salam trusted Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and everything got right for him in the end. And I just keep on arguing with the command of Allah and I just keep messing it up. Maybe if I trusted Allah more, things would work out for me. Because Allah will not lead me astray. You go between Safa and Marwa and you're feeling now how Hajar felt as she ran out of water. She knew that she would not be lost because she asked Ibrahim, did your Lord order you to leave us there? He said, yes. He said, right? You will not lead us to waste. She knew she was not going to be led to waste, but she has no clue how. She goes between Safa and Marwa back and forth as you go through thinking, can you imagine a woman with a newborn left in the desert, trusting in Allah, and then when she puts her child, water springs forth, and as you drink from the water of Zamzam, you're not even thinking of how sweet the water is. You just think, this is a miracle from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then you continue on your journey, and you're not even realizing it. Your mind is opening up, and your heart is opening up. As you're proceeding, you are changing. A very good friend of mine went to Hajj, and he had loaned, true story in New Jersey, he had loaned a large amount to build a new school as a loan. And they were later paying him back, and they were very late paying him back, a year or something. And he would threaten me to sue them, and he just thought, Hajj, get back from Hajj, forget about it. Because he saw things differently after Hajj. Wonderful person, by the way. So you're now not even realizing it, but you're changing. Your outlook is changing. Your mind is changing. Your thoughts are changing. And then, after this, you eventually make it to the Jamarat. And as you make it to the Jamarat, you're thinking to yourself, what is the Jamarat about? That was actually the ultimate test. That was the final of the big tests of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as He tells us in the Quran, and remember when Allah tested Ibrahim with certain words, certain commands, فَأَتَمَّهُنْ, He completed all the tests from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And immediately what was the consequence? قَالَ إِنْ جَعَلْتَ لِلنَّاسِ إِمَامًا, I will make you leader to mankind. And then you think to yourself, Allah, if this ummah is ever going to take its proper place and the leadership of mankind, it will be with this. Allah tests us, and we have to pass those tests. And we cannot do the shortcuts. And we can't say, oh Allah, you're saying one way, but we feel something else, and then we expect somehow magically Allah will support us. And you go to the Jamarat and you think, do you realize how hard it is for somebody to actually sacrifice that same son that we left in the desert? And then you remind yourself how wonderful it is that instead of being shaken and weak, you are strong. And that gives you strength for your iman. And you say, you know what? I'm going to be strong. I will be firm. When haqq is haqq, I will stand up for it. Come what may. I will align myself with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I will do what pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then you go to Arafah, the great day of Hajj. And you are now overwhelmed by the masses of people all around you. And you feel at that moment almost closer to Allah than any other time, even though you're closer to Allah in sujood technically. But at least in a place closer to Allah than you're in this magical place of Hajj. And the next day is the day of slaughter, the best day of the year. And as you slaughter, you remember that is because what Ibrahim wanted to do. You are reenacting what Ibrahim was doing. But then, while many religions have this concept that to appease the gods, blood has to be spilled, for us as Muslims, slaughtering the sheep is an act of charity and an act of community. I eat from it, my friend and family eat from it, my friend and neighbors eat from it, and the poor needy eat from it. It's community. It's coming together. It's eliminating the differences. There is no high and low anymore. We all come together and share the joy. And we are doing it celebrating the total submission of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And you emerge from that saying, I too will sacrifice for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I will put my trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your Hajj is complete. And then you cut your hair, and you now can wear normal clothes. And then you're struck with a feeling. Well, wait a minute. This was a very special experience. What's going to happen now? Emerging from Hajj is a lot like emerging from Ramadan, both ending with Eid. Am I going to go back to the way I was before, or am I going to allow the transformation to stick? And you think to yourself, I can't go back. I've seen too much. I've experienced too much. I feel different things. I am now more the servant of Allah than ever been before. I realize now that Islam transcends race, nationality, social status, wealth, educational background, family. None of these are eliminated as part of the world, but they are eliminated as criteria for closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or for what actually matters. And I realize that Islam transcends time. Ibrahim alayhi salam, Muhammad alayhi salam, all the prophets between and before, all the people who followed after, all one. You and I can literally call Ibrahim alayhi salam my brother. I just hope you are worthy of calling him that. That's a great responsibility, by the way. You should feel like, whoa. But now you feel it. It transcends time. It transcends space, geography. It transcends social differences. It's also about leaving dunya behind. You are prepared for death for a couple of weeks. It's also about Ibrahim alayhi salam. You are reminding yourself of the total submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a couple of weeks. So you come back, you recommit yourself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you seek the bounty of Allah. While you were in Hajj, you were more careful than any other time about what you say, because you know that there is that Hajj. While you were in Hajj, you were exercising self-control. To go to Hajj, you have to sacrifice, and to go to Hajj, the act of going to Hajj itself is sacrifice. You know how for fasting, Allah is not intending for fasting to be hard. You read Allah, you use the way you read the But actually jihad, Hajj is jihad with Asham. Hajj is inherently hard, it's difficult. And you went through it. My dear brothers and sisters, we've just gone through a little journey, a short journey, where we have shared with our brothers and our sisters who are the Hajjaj some of the things that they will experience. Please allow them to sink in. Share with them their experience. And Allah made it explicit for us in two ways at least, many, many ways. First, the first 10 days of Hajj. Times of dhikr, times of remembrance, times of being closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, times of khayr, best 10 days of the year. Second, the Messenger explicitly told us that fasting the ninth forgives the year past. I hope it forgives the year past and the future of sins. And the actual act of nahr, the sacrifice. You know the Hajjaj don't have to do sacrifice. Unless they do Quran, and especially at Hajj. But the normal ifrad, the normal kind of Hajj, you don't have to do. Sacrifice is what you and I do as a substitute for them. You're sharing with them. They're remembering Ibrahim by going, you're remembering Ibrahim by acting. So share with them. And remember, do not forgo the great blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during these days. Remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at all times. And remember Him with your heart before you remember Him with your heart, with your mind, and remember Him with your mind before you remember Him with your tongue. Make it change you. And if you allow Allah to change you, He will. And if you see the guidance of Allah, He will guide you. And if you seek the bounty of Allah, He will get it. And you seek forgiveness from Allah, He will get it. So seek the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah bless us all, and that Allah make some of those who are transformed in these 10 days, even though we have not physically gone there. Jazakumullah khair. In the last few minutes, if there is any question, I'm happy to take it. Any question? Wayan. First time I went to Mecca, it was for Umrah, it was not Hajj. When I first entered the masjid and I saw the Kaaba in front of me, I was like that for about 25 seconds, 30 seconds. My mind, I had a short in my mind. And I was like, all the memories right now, all the significances of that house in front of me were just short in my brain. Now, every time I remember the Kaaba, I remember that moment. Any questions? May Allah accept from all of you. May Allah allow us to Hajj. If you've never gone to Hajj, Allah will make it easy for you. If you've gone to Hajj, Allah will make it easy for you to go again. If you cannot go, Allah will make it easy for you to go. Assalamu alaikum.
جزاكم الله خيرا. قبل إن شاء الله ينفع بيك. Inshallah, before we go for the Aisha, inshallah, just a couple of announcements. First, inshallah, we have our program ongoing for the first 10 days of the Hijjah with the Khatira and the Adhkar at 8 till 8:30 p.m. every night. So inshallah, starting from, we started that day before yesterday. So please do your best to join us virtually for this program, inshallah, every night from 8 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. inshallah. The second, inshallah, we have our Salat al-Eid here in the center, inshallah, on Saturday, inshallah. I don't think we have the time yet, exact time.
Takbirat is 9 o'clock.
Huh?
Takbirat is 9, Salah is 9:30.
So Takbirat at 9 and Salat 9:30. Jazakumullah khairan. Now, inshallah, we'll get ready, inshallah, for the Isha. I think the Iqamah at 10:10. So if any brother or sister will have Qiyam Wudu, and then inshallah after the Isha we'll have our Qiyam, then inshallah we'll have our Shaf'i Wajh, and then Nasheed, and then Khitam, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا حي على الصلاة حي على
Take a rice too. You close that out.
على الفلاح. لكن لسه خطيرة أو قاطعة. عادة لما نزلت الأولاد اللي بيكونوا موجودين لما يكون في مسجد غير مساجدنا الناس بتحترم الأذان. يكون في أي مسجد آخر والأذان يؤذن الناس بتتكلم مش كله احتراما للأذان إلا نحن. فلما الأذان هو شعار الإسلام. لما الأذان يؤذن قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يعني إذا سمعتم النداء قولوا مثل ما يقول، ولما يقول حي على الصلاة قولوا لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله، حي على الفلاح لا حول ولا قوة. لما يخلص الأذان في دعاء الله يخليك جزاكم الله خير. وصلت الرسالة.
الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
استووا اعتدلوا رحمه الله. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. الحج أشهر معلومات فمن فرض فيهن الحج فلا رفث ولا فسوق ولا جدال في الحج وما تفعلوا من خير يعلمه الله وتزودوا فإن خير الزاد التقوى واتقون يا أولي الألباب ليس